everybody, how we doing? I wanted to do a little bit different video for you today. Something that I always like to do at some point throughout the camps to help clarify why I'm doing what I'm doing and the science behind it and how to apply it when we get back home. I can take a million videos and I can get dogs to achieve here, and that's fine. But if that dog goes home and you can't do it, and you get frustrated and you're wondering, why did it work with me instead of working with you? I found that often boils down to methodology and not understanding the exact reasons us as trainers are operating in the way we're operating. It might just seem very routine and simple when you're watching a video at home, but if you're not understanding why I'm applying certain things at certain times, you could get confused, frustrated, and you're going to have different results. And the biggest issue that I've seen in training over my tenure is varied results. High success with the trainer, high success in a well-structured and consistent environment, and I don't want to say total failure at home, but I will say misunderstanding, right? I don't want to have any of that. I want you guys to know exactly what I know, okay? And be able to apply what I'm applying the same way. And if we don't get that foundation underneath us, that's not going to be as easily done. So really quickly, first I'm going to talk about tools. I've mentioned what I'm using. I'm not heavily reliant on tools, but we do need to be using the same things. I know Christmas is coming up, so you're going to be ordering a bunch of stuff for other people. We're going to need to add to Santa's list a couple things that we need to have on time when we get back home. If we don't, that lapse in however many days it takes to go get them could definitely negatively impact the results of training. So number one tool, pretty much the only thing that I ever put on a dog in terms of a leash is a slip lead, okay? This is about 5 feet, as I've told you. It is a 1/4 inch in thickness, and it has a spring-loaded stopper. See that? I would recommend finding all 3 of these things in whatever slip leash brand you want. They're all made pretty similarly. These are not for sale. These are not to be given out. These are products of the company and just used for us trainers for examples. But they're all pretty much exactly the same. I don't really have loyalty to one brand or another. I have loyalty to features. 5 feet. Why 5 feet? Longer than that, the dog is way more easily distracted. Even another foot I wouldn't recommend. Can you do it? Yes. Is it harder? Yes. Okay? Shorter leash, less mistakes. Keep it simple. Spring-loaded stopper. Why? A lot of times are made with leather stoppers, and what happens? This is how we place them, right? On top of the head, up high behind the ears. What happens if this stopper backs off? This can loosen. Dog can move around. This can fall off. We don't want that. You need a strong stopper. I found the spring-loaded ones are the best. It keeps the knot from slipping back. It keeps it tight and high. You avoid risk to the trachea. You avoid risk of the leash falling off. You keep control of the most important area, your dog's focus, your dog's eye contact, right? Move the head, control the eyes, control the brain. It's about proper communication, okay? And if we have this down here instead of here, how does that affect communication? A lot more muscles down here, a lot more free moving, right? We're going to get lost, we're going to get distracted, and when we pull, we're going to have more to pull with. A lot more to pull with. If we're up here, nice and safe, okay? Behind the ears, much less to pull with, which means when we're directing our dog, we are required, it's required of us to use much less force, right? Dog turns one way, we turn the other. We're turning the head if we keep it up here, and we're fighting against every bit of strength that dog has when it slides down. So 5 feet, good stopper. Why a 1/4 inch? Almost for the same reason as a stopper. Same line of reasoning. It slides down a lot easier when you have the thicker leashes. A lot of them are in 1/2 inch. Almost all of them are in 1/2 inch. It's way too big. It's going to slide down all the time. It's also going to be stronger in terms of the knot force, so that can back the stopper off a lot more easily. 5 feet, spring-loaded stopper, 1/4 inch in thickness. That's all you need. Pretty much my secondary tool, I'd say, doing these in order, is a clicker. Okay, clicker, Karen Pryor, dog psychologist. It's genius. It's just a way to basically make me sound like you, sound like him, sound like her, sound like everyone. Okay, it makes life a lot easier. It boosts consistency. Just use it for a while. If you don't like it, you want to phase it out in the future. When dogs listen, dogs listen. When dogs want to listen, dogs listen forever, for the rest of their life, okay? We need to get your dogs to a point where they want to listen to you. They want to take direction from you. Where's that starting? Starting here. They need to want to listen to me. They need to want to take direction from me. Now, if I spend 6 weeks speaking in my tone, being cognizant of my tone, using it a certain way, and then they go home and that tone fluctuation changes, the training drops off. The reliability drops off. This is going to make sure that we sound the same, okay? I like to describe clickers as check marks, all right? You'll even hear me say mark it a lot. When you hear me or other trainers say mark it, it means the dog has completed the task, and you need to tell that dog has completed the task immediately. There is no quicker, more consistent, more efficient way of doing that than a clicker. Then a noise is what I should say. Not necessarily this device, but then a consistent noise that every time is going to be delivered at the same pitch, and it's going to be delivered timely. Pitch and timing is most important when marking. If I ask a dog to sit, and he's going to sit, and I click this before the dog sits, once this is conditioned in, once this is loaded, that dog is going to think it's sit meant hover my rear end a little bit above the ground because that's where I marked it. So timing is imperative. This is not marked, this is not clicked until the task is achieved. Exactly as it looks on paper, whatever that is. If that's place training, if that's sitting, if that's recall training, if that's loose leash walking, if that's heel work, it doesn't matter. Eye contact, as soon as it's finished, whatever task you're asking the dog to perform, you mark it right on time. We're going to talk about what happens after you mark it in a little bit more detail in a second here. I'm just going to finish the tools first. Slip lead, clicker. Get them, order them, throw them all around the house, have 1 million of them. I lose 1 million of them a year. You're probably going to lose them too. Just be ready for a lot of head scratching if you don't get a lot of them. You're going to lose them. 3, treats. I don't care what kind. Something good for them is great. Whatever your dog ends up liking is what they end up liking. But treats. I want to go over the treat thing in a little bit more depth than just the tool thing, because I don't think we have complication with the tools. But we've run into a little bit of resistance with the treating, and aside from the resistance, at the very least, just questioning, right? How much do I treat my dog? When do I treat my dog? When do I stop treating my dog? How do I treat my dog? Okay? The short answer to when do I stop using treats is never. Your entire life, there's always going to be new challenges, new experiences, new smells, new sounds, new dogs, new this, new that. Those are all high reward moments. Are the treats going to drop off in terms of consistency of application? Of course they are. We're not going to be handicapped by needing to bribe our dogs, okay? We're not in the state where we need to even worry about whether or not it's bribery or coercion versus actual learned behavior, because right now, we're 2 weeks in, everybody started at the same time, so it's still foundation stuff. We're treat heavy when you're building foundations. You have to be, unless you want to use another end of the spectrum of training, which we don't use here. So you're going to be using treats for a while, stock up on them, Eventually, once you boost that food motivation, treats don't need to be expensive things you buy like that. Treats can be kibble. Treats can be, I don't know, a piece of bread. It doesn't really matter. Once you've built up your dog's food motivation, I can find a little crumb I left from dinner the night before and get my dog to jump through hoops. You just have to have the willingness to be obedient, right? The willingness to listen. And then every reward, every little bit of whatever you're going to give your dog, its value goes through the roof if your value increases. We essentially need to become resources to our dogs. It might sound a little bit selfish from the dog's perspective, looking at us as a resource, but that's just how they look at us. So that's a matter of fact, and the higher resource we are, the more affection they have for us, and the more consistent, reliable results we're going to get in terms of commands, obedience, behavior. They need to see you as a very high value resource. I just met these dogs 2 weeks ago. So when I met these dogs, what did I mean to them? Zilch. Absolutely nothing. Strange man. Put me in his car. We went someplace. What's going on here? I need to boost that resource, right? How do I do that? I provide them with water. I provide them with food. I provide them with a den. That's the kennel. And I provide them with, you guessed it, bunch of these. My value is climbing, 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 climbing. The more resources I provide them with, right? I become synonymous with the resource. So some easy ways to do that. Timely feedings, as in we're going to nix the grazing. If anyone is still grazing, we're going to feed very timely. We're going to feed in 15-minute increments, and we're going to feed in our dens, right? In the dog's den, in the kennel. We're going to boost the value of the kennel, and we're going to boost the value of us because we become synonymous with the food. If you leave your bowl out and you let your dog graze, what happens? The dog thinks that the bowl provides food. The bowl is the provider. Is there a lot of logic to it? No, but that's what they think. Not the case. We need to be seen with the food. Have your dog in the room when you're preparing the food, right? Oh man, this guy is making something for me. How is he doing it? It's magic. When really, we're scooping it out of a bag with a cup. But watch them, have them sit, place, whatever you want. Have them watch you prepare their food, send them to their den. They go den. You mark that they listened. You pay, right? Just keep building your value. Now, once your value is highly established, the dog is going to want to listen to you because it knows it gets things out of listening to you. It doesn't need to get them every single time, but it knows there's a chance it's going to get it. And that's where we need to get to. We need focus. We need respect. We need a willingness to learn. Okay? Those three things. That's what's going to get you there. Slip lead, boost your communication. Clicker, boost your communication. Treats, boost your value as a resource. If your dog's not listening to you, you're not a high enough resource. So we're going to climb, we're going to climb, we're going to climb until your dog looks at you like you are everything in the universe wrapped in one. When you get home, you get eye contact, you get focus, you get no jumping, you get, what do you want me to do, boss? You'll get the wiggles, which is fine. I want my dogs to be excited to see me, and they definitely are. I mean, their bodies almost break sideways. But you need to get to that point over time, over long periods of time. Do I stop treating my dogs because they love listening to me? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No sense does that make. If I stop treating them, what happens? I decrease as a resource value, right? My resource value decreases. I decrease as a resource. Down, down, and down until we're at this point of, man, I don't understand. My dog's not listening to me. He's listening to this guy. Well, I pay him for listening to me. I pay them timely. I'm very clear with how I communicate. That's all dogs want. They just want clear communication, and they want to know where they fit in. All right? It's really easy. once they get there to understand that. It can obviously be confusing when they're not there, because you're questioning, what is it? Is it me? Is it this environment? Is it their history? Is it their cohabitation? We're going to drop all those things when we get back from this. We're going to reset with clear communication, great timing, and building our resource value. Okay? Eventually, that resource, the amount of times we're going to pay with an actual treat decreases, and then you know what you pay with? Pets and praise. But no matter what, you are paying your whole life. You need to pay your dog in some way, shape, or form, because if you don't, it's unfair, and your dog's going to lose respect for you, and it's going to lose interest in wanting to listen to you, because, hey, man, I thought we had a clear understanding. All you want from me is to listen and do said things. I do said things. Now you stiff me on the payment. Well, we got a problem, right? Anybody would have an issue with that. Any person would have an issue with that. Of course, an animal is going to understand that. It's a very simple concept. It's going to be treats for a very long time, especially with things that are very difficult for them to do. Everybody here is struggling with recall. So treating for recall, I mean, I go so far as to cut up and boil some chicken when I do off-leash recall with my dogs out in a park or somewhere like that. If you want your dog to want to listen, boost your resource value. Sitting is really easy. I don't need a treat every time for sitting. Do I need to pay in some form or another? Yeah, you still got to pay. That could just be a click. It could just be a click. Once this is conditioned in, this equates to payment, right? Because every time they hear this, which is called loading the clicker, every time we load it by paying after the noise, it's going to be noise, food, noise, food, noise, food, noise, food. Noise. Now we have a conditioned stimulus, right? Noise equals, I'm ready to get paid. I must have did a good job. It's a little spark in the neurons, right? They get a little bit of a pre-reward even before the reward if we condition them. Something like the clicker. If you want to phase the clicker out and use your voice later, that's fine. We're going to move on from tools now. Slip lead, clicker, treats for a long time. Whether that's to the state of randomizing when you treat or treating consistently because you need to build a foundation, we'll get there. Okay? It's just building blocks. We'll get there. We'll get to a point where your dog wants to listen, and then you can be sparse with the treats. You can be sparse with the payments. Right now, treats for a long time. I'm going to move to methodology really quickly, and we're going to wrap things up because this is going to be probably my longest video and maybe, potentially, quite boring to some of you guys. So we're going to talk about, we talked a little bit about classical conditioning with the clicker, right? Classical conditioning is who? You've all heard of him. Ian Pavlov, right? You have unconditioned stimuli, unconditioned response. This click means nothing to your dog unless I condition it in. So what we start doing is clicking and giving food. Clicking and giving food. So now we're conditioning the dog to understand when this noise happens, I'm going to give food. Noise, food, noise, food. What happens in the third stage? Now that we have a conditioned stimulus, we get a conditioned response. Click equals I'm jazzed for food. I'm jazzed for something, right? I'm jazzed for payment itself. That's what it's going to turn into. The click will release a little bit of dopamine up here. The payment, it's up to us. If that's a treat, if that's a pet, if that's just vocal praise, it's still payment. You gotta pay for a dog listening. Whether that's my dog does a bad act, I tell it to stop doing that, it stops doing that, and I walk away? No. It stops doing that, I say, hey, appreciate you listening to me, right? Which segues into what we're going to talk about with operant conditioning. That's classical conditioning. Really simple. Clicker, conditioned stimulus equals payment. Operant conditioning, it's got 4 quadrants, right? We're talking B.F. Skinner now. Moved on from Pavlov. On to another smart guy. What are we always trying to do with dog training? What's the main point? My handwriting is atrocious. I will preface with that. But it helps me think. We're either trying to increase or decrease behavior. That's it. That's dog training in a nutshell. How do we do that? That falls in a division of 4 quadrants, okay? We have positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, negative punishment, okay? That's operant conditioning. That's it. That's what it is. What the hell does it mean? Great question. I'm going to use the example of jumping. It's on everyone's list right now, and it's a very common one, and it's one that's very easily fixed. But we do need to figure out what's the best way of fixing it, right? You come home, and your dog is jumping on you. What would you like to do with that behavior? You'd like to decrease it. So if you want to decrease it, we're on this end of the spectrum, right? We're down here. We're down here in the P's. I don't want my dog to be jumping. How do I get him to stop? What we do here, and what these fancy certificates binds me to doing, and what I believe in doing, is something called following the guidelines of LIMA. Least invasive, minimally aversive. Okay? So if I start down here and I look at my 2 options, positive punishment, negative punishment, what am I going to pick if I want to follow LIMA? I'm going to pick negative punishment. That sounds bad. It's not. We're talking science now, right? So a plus does not mean positive. It does not mean, I should say, a plus does not mean a good thing. And a minus does not mean a bad thing, like it does in other circumstances. In science, a plus means I'm adding something, and a negative means I'm taking something away. If I come in and my dog jumps on me, I want to be here. I want to be here. This follows LIMA. Why and how? No touch, no talk, no eye contact. I am going to remove myself, my engagement, my attention, my value from the situation. That's going to be negatively punishing the dog. You're so excited to see me that you're jumping on me? How about this? How about hands in pockets? Neutralize yourself. Become a statue. No touch, no talk, no eye contact. That's where we need to start. We always need to start with the least invasive, minimally intrusive methods, okay? And if it doesn't work in the very first time, don't give up on that. That doesn't, just stick with it. It will work, okay? Let's say we've done it, we've stuck with it, right? We've done it for, I don't know, excuse me one sec. We've done it for, let's say, a month. And it's not really doing it, right? That's when we can start considering this end. Okay? Positive punishment. It's got the word positive, but it's got the word punishment. What does it mean? You're adding something to decrease the behavior. The word punishment, don't think of as locking someone in a jail cell. It's equated to the word decrease. So you are going to be positively decreasing. Okay? You can add in a noise. You've heard the Caesar noise, I'm sure. If your dog's jumping. You can add in body pressure if your dog's jumping. You can add in hand signals if your dog's jumping, gesticulating. You could do all 3 and really get the point across. Move forward, claim your space. I see a lot of jumping problems, and I see this. Or they try to stand their ground, and they go like this. Dogs can read the tiniest of commissures in our lips, in our eyes, every part of our body. They're visual learners. This means keep jumping on me. This means get off of me. and you don't have to touch the dog. Positive, meaning I'm adding my voice, my hand signal, my body pressure. I'm adding it to what's the P? To decrease a behavior, the jumping. We're always going to start here, right? Lima. Lima is here. Lima is here, and Lima is here. These two we want to avoid until the behavior is learned, or until, maybe not fully learned, but understood, struggling with. Either way, it's past the initial foundation stages, right? So let's say, go back to the start, right? We did negative P. So we took away ourselves in order to decrease the jumping. We neutralized and we turned around. I don't want any part of you. I don't want this jumping. This is nonsense. Nothing. Don't give him anything. That's removing our affection, removing our attention. We've removed our attention to decrease the jumping, and they stop jumping. Now what do we do? This corresponds most often to this. We positively reinforce it. How? Thank you for not jumping on me. Go pet your dog now. Be timely, but positively reinforce it. This is a circumstance where you don't necessarily need a treat. Okay? There are ones that are treat heavy, like recalling. Treat for recall for the next year at the minimum with your dogs, by the way. But jumping, not that serious. Don't need to pay every time. So, following Lima, following the path of positive reinforcement, our dog stops. We're here. You notice the jumping stop. We turn, we mark, and we pay. We pay with affection, pay with praise, pay with pets. That's what they're after when they're jumping, right? There's other circumstances that dogs jump. In this circumstance, in this scenario, when it's just a person, there's no food in your hand, there's no other resource, there's no crinkly bag of chips. They're jumping to get your affection, to get your attention. Neutralize. Negative punishment. Removing something to decrease behavior. Remove yourself. Dog stops. Add yourself back in. Simple as that. The same method, and why I'm explaining it ad nauseum and so specifically, is because we're going to apply these two things to everything across board right now. Once a dog understands that they're not supposed to jump on you, like my dogs, right? One is 3 years into training, the other is 1 year into training. They both know they don't jump on me, they don't jump on guests. They know that. Are they going to make mistakes throughout the course of their life? Of course they are. It's true, people. Even dog trainers' dogs make mistakes. They make that mistake, even though they know not to jump. I'm not gonna tell that person, remove yourself and neutralize, because my dog has a clear-cut understanding of the expectations. They make a mistake that they know they shouldn't be doing. There has to be a consequence for that mistake. That's when I'm gonna go right to here. Once they understand it, I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna add my noise. I'm gonna add my gesticulation and my body pressure. I'm going to say, shh, and he's going to go, whoa, that's right. I should not do that. How do we experience this? Now, if we're conditioning it in and they're learning it, right? We're on this spectrum. We're on Lima. We're the positive dog trainers, baby. We're right here. I removed myself because he was jumping. Stopped jumping. I brought myself back in. I added my body pressure to decrease jumping because the dog understands it's not supposed to jump, but it did it anyway. I'm going to jump to this one. What's this one? Negative reinforcement. What's that? That's probably the most confusing quadrant that I ever hear from people. Trainers that I've trained, places that I've worked at, Trainers that think they have a decent grasp on this, but they struggle a bit, they struggle here mostly with the negative reinforcement. Because if there's an R by it, we're still increasing behavior. We want the behavior to increase. If there's a P, we want it to decrease, but we're over here. So negative reinforcement, I want the behavior to increase, but I need to remove something in order for it to increase. What do? Sticking to our simple example, keeping our eyes straight, we remove the noise, the gesticulating, and the body pressure, right? So the dog is here, the dog jumps on someone, knows it shouldn't jump, it's a trained dog. Shh. The dog stops, I remove the pressure. I take away my body pressure, I take away my gesticulating. If you are using something like a compressed air can instead of just your voice, that compressed air can stays on until that dog stops jumping. The dog stops jumping, guess what you remove? That compressed air can. They're called pet correctors. If you don't like the shh noise all the time, you can grab one of those. Sometimes when I get hoarse, get a dry throat, talk too much, train too much, I'll switch to those little things. They're great. But that's the negative reinforcement. I removed myself or the noise or whatever I did to get you to stop jumping. You stop jumping. I removed all that pressure. What does the dog think in both scenarios? All right, let's dive in inside their brain a little bit. In scenario 1, following Lima, right? Least invasive, minimally aversive. The dog jumped. I removed myself, right? So we're going to start here. Jump. Removed myself. How did I remove myself? Okay. And here, the dog stopped jumping. No jump. Then what happened? I went right here. I positively reinforced it. Jump. Negative punishment. Stop jumping. Positive reinforcement. What's the dog thinking throughout this whole process? I wanted to see my owner. My owner became disinterested in me. I got disinterested with the situation. I stopped jumping. Then my owner wanted to see me. What does a dog think at the end of this, if we condition this in well? They think that no jumping equals affection. This is where they wanted to get, right? They want the quickest path to get there. If we train them, Lima, if we train them as positive trainers the right way, the most effective way, there's only this way in the beginning. In the training stages, there's only this way. In the learned stage, that's when we come over here. But we're not. We're training, right? The dog got here in how many steps? 1, 2, 3, 4. And boom, achieved affection. That dog is going to sit their butt down so fast if you do this. If you do this equation and you do it timely and you do it consistently, you pay every time, you pay at the same time, you reintroduce yourself at the same time, they're going to sit so fast when you come in. Because they're going to go, all I want is a beeline to my guy, right? I want to get in there. I want the pets. I want the praise. Quickest way to get there, if we teach them this, we teach them the right way, is to not get all over me. As soon as you lay off me, I give you exactly what you want. You've just trained a dog how to do nothing. A beautiful thing. One of my favorite things. ABC, always build calm. Always build calmness. Always build calm behavior. And doing nothing. Those are my favorite times to reward dogs. When they're being calm in a stressful situation, I'm going to mark and reward. And when they're doing nothing in a situation where they used to do a lot, like jumping, and now versus not jumping, favorite thing to reward. I'm going to reinforce that for eternity, and your dog will never even think to jump again because they don't get anything out of it. Let's move to 2. This is training, which is what we're doing right now. I don't know what symbol that is. I think I tried to do a star. We're training, okay? Here, we're trained. These dogs are going to come home trained to me, not that you haven't done it with them. So it's not going to be the same thing. It's not going to be, I need to just jump right to number 2 with my dog, right? I need to just dog jumps, tell him to get off me. Until you go through these equations in every application that you need to work on, whether that's poor recall, whether that's the jumping, whether that's leash pulling, all of the same things apply to all those. I'm going through them tediously, ad nauseum, every day, 12 hours a day, different situations, right? In order to get them to a point where when they go home, you just run these equations. You run them like processing them in a computer. You just run them, you get the result. You run them, you get the result. Run them, get the result. I'm teaching them all, I'm conditioning them. Then it's just going to be equations in different circumstances. Now that I'm going to stick to the jumping one, but again, it applies to all of them. Every one, the leash pulling, whatever it is, getting out furniture, counter surfing, it applies, the same thing applies in a social situation, dog to dog. You still run this. You still run this 4 quadrants of operant conditioning. You always run it. You intermix other cool things like the clicker, but what the clicker does is help you, right, achieve better results. It just makes everything nice and universal. Now, once, this is where the dog's going to leave, right? This is in regards to me. Where do you want to get? You want to get here too. You're going to have to go through a hyper process of this. You're going to have to go through a micro version of what we're doing here. Because the dog needs to know that you know what I know. And they're pretty smart. So if they figure it out and they go, oh man, this guy and this guy, they're on complete different pages. When I do something, I know his response. I'm trained to his response. And that's why I'm obedient. When I do something with you, because they're going to test you. They test everyone all the time. It's like their full-time job. When they go home and they test you, and we're not on the same page, they go, throw that in the garbage. This guy doesn't know everything that guy knew. So they're going to go back to not listening, exploiting, being selfish. Okay? So you need to go through a hyperversion of these equations in everything, in terms of everything. We're always using these quadrants, always. What you're going to start with are these 2, okay? You're going to retrain your dog when we get home with these 2 because that's the whole process I'm going through. They're not yet to this point with me either. They're not yet to this side of the spectrum, to these 2 quadrants. They're not there yet. They're not trained, which is fine. We still got weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of practice, of running Lima, of running positive dog training, okay? This is going to encourage them to succeed staying on the center of the spectrum. Once they're consistent, once they know that they know how to behave and they start misbehaving, we jump to the other side. We jump to the trained side. Okay? Same situation. I come home, the dog jumps. I don't like that. I want to decrease it. Decreasing with the piece. Right? I want that behavior to stop. P's mean decrease. When we're training, we're here. When we're trained, we're here. Jumping stopped. Okay? How do I solidify that? I want to reinforce it. R's are increasing. P's decreasing. R's increasing. What does the dog think? Here, no jump equals affection. Here, I should say jumping equals no. Okay, it becomes more simple over time. The dog's going to think, I better not jump. I know better. I went through training, right? We went through this side of operant conditioning. We went through this psychology. I worked with a guy. He knew what was up. He taught me what was up. You go home, you run these equations much quicker than the 6 weeks here. You run them all. Your first week, you should hit every big topic, right? Go over it. Next week, same thing. Go over it. They fall over here, okay? They fall into a trained state. My dogs, that's where my dogs are at. If I teach my dogs something new, where do I go? I go to this side. I'm teaching them something new. This is dog training. This is dog trained. Okay? You're going to still jump back and forth between these at times because you're going to teach your dog new things. Okay? But once your dog has learned them, you need to hold them accountable. Operant conditioning as a whole, right? It's behavior and consequence. That's it. That's it. That's what operant conditioning is. It's increasing or decreasing the behavior due to, them not listening. There's a consequence. They make their own, right? They write their own consequences. If they're learning it, you can't punish a dog with positive punishment if it doesn't know what to do. That's completely unfair. Goes against all dog training principles. AKC, right? Lima. Nobody would do that. It's just completely unfair. We only get here when you know the dog knows, and the dog respects you, and the dog wants to listen. And then all these little things, this big equation, in the beginning when we jump to trained, it might be all that. Right? It might be the plus P right there. It might be adding that P to decrease behavior with that extreme. And then after the dog listens more and more, and you build your bond, you enter the stage of relationship-based training. We're not there. When you get to relationship-based training, that's coasting. That is living the dream. You're living like a dog trainer with dog trainer dogs. Dog training dogs, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, dogs that train dogs. Dogs that professionally work with trainers. You know what I mean? Once you get to that point, you're coasting. Relationship-based training is my dog wants to listen to me, and I know it. So I pay him when he does, and when he doesn't, I tell him to stop doing it, and he stops doing it, and I say, thanks for not doing it, right? I just had a bunch of people over yesterday, as I mentioned to you guys. So when I'm running through things with your dogs and with my dogs, I want to keep even a stranger on time with it. Because my dog's reliability depends on everyone else, including me. It's not just me. Everyone can mess up your dog's training in a second, or they can reinforce it in a second. You need to get everyone in your household on the same page. You guys all become unified. You learn what I learned, apply what I've been applying. You're going to fly through those stages, get to relationship-based training in no time. All right? Study your 4 quadrants of operant conditioning. Get your dog from a trainee to a trained dog, all right? And get yourself some tools because it's going to be definitely going to be imperative. If the tools are different, the dog's brain already starts churning and going, well, maybe everything's different. So, same tools, same operant conditioning, same behaviors and consequences, same rules, same guidelines. Everything's going to work out just fine. Let me know if you guys got any questions. That was a long one.